What if the choices you believe define your individuality were never truly yours to make? Imagine a world where every decision, from what you'll eat for breakfast to your deepest life goals, was predetermined, not by divine forces, but by a complex interplay of biology, psychology, and cosmic laws. This isn't just a philosophical exercise, it's a question that strikes at the very core of human identity. Throughout history, the idea of free will has sparked profound debates. Philosophers like Socrates and Descartes championed human autonomy, while others, like Spinoza, argued that our actions are inevitable consequences of prior causes. In contrast, spiritual traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism often suggest a middle path, intertwining destiny and self-determination. Today, modern neuroscience offers a disruptive twist. Studies reveal that our brains may decide long before we consciously act, challenging the long-held belief that we control our fate. Could free will be an illusion crafted by the mind to make sense of a predetermined world? This video will bridge these philosophical musings with groundbreaking scientific discoveries, delving deep into the interplay between free will and determinism. By the end, you'll question whether your choices are truly your own, or the result of forces beyond your control. The debate over free will versus determinism is as ancient as human thought itself, rooted in the earliest attempts to understand our role in the cosmos. The origins of free will as a concept can be traced back to the philosophies of Socrates, Aristotle, and their contemporaries. Socrates believed that true freedom came from self-knowledge, positing that ignorance was the root of all wrong decisions. To him, understanding oneself was the path to moral autonomy, and free will was not merely about choice, but about the wisdom to choose rightly. Aristotle, however, took a more structured approach. He introduced the concept of voluntary action, arguing that humans possess the ability to deliberate and act in accordance with their rational desires. He saw free will as a cornerstone of ethical responsibility. Without it, accountability for one's actions would collapse. Yet, Aristotle also acknowledged limitations. External forces and ignorance could constrain one's capacity to act freely. While Greek philosophers wrestled with logical frameworks, Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism approached the concept from a metaphysical angle. In Hindu philosophy, the idea of karma governs the interplay between free will and determinism. Karma suggests that while past actions shape one's circumstances, individuals still possess the agency to choose their responses. The Bhagavad Gita, a seminal Hindu text, emphasizes this balance, urging individuals to act without attachment to outcomes, thus transcending the illusion of complete control. Buddhism offers a unique perspective by rejecting the notion of a fixed self. In this view, free will exists, not as an inherent trait, but as a byproduct of mindfulness and awareness. By understanding the impermanent and interconnected nature of reality, individuals can break free from habitual patterns and/or exercise conscious choice. However, these choices are not isolated. They are part of a web of interdependent causation, blurring the lines between autonomy and determinism. Religious doctrines, especially in the West, have been deeply influenced by these philosophical foundations. Christianity, for instance, places significant emphasis on free will as a divine gift. According to Christian theology, free will is essential for moral responsibility. Humans are seen as capable of choosing between good and evil, a prerequisite for judgment and salvation. However, the doctrine of predestination, particularly in Calvinist interpretations, challenges this view. It argues that God has already determined the fate of every soul, raising questions about the true extent of human autonomy. Islam presents a similarly nuanced perspective. While the Quran frequently speaks of human accountability, it also highlights God's omnipotence and control over all events. The coexistence of free will and divine will in Islamic theology is often explained through the analogy of a teacher who knows how students will perform, but does not interfere with their choices. In contrast, Eastern religions like Jainism advocate for absolute free will, asserting that every individual has the power to shape their destiny through disciplined effort. This belief stems from the Jain commitment to personal responsibility and the rejection of external saviors. Similarly, Sikhism integrates free will with divine grace, teaching that humans have the capacity to act but must align their will with the creators for true liberation. Predestination and free will also collide in historical debates within Christianity. Augustine of Hippo initially championed free will, but later emphasized the necessity of divine grace for salvation, suggesting that human will alone was insufficient. This tension continued through the Reformation, where Martin Luther and John Calvin argued that humanity's fallen nature rendered free will ineffective without God's intervention. Interestingly, these theological debates resonate with the deterministic principles of Stoicism. The Stoics believed that while fate governs the external world, individuals retain the freedom to govern their internal responses. This inner freedom aligns closely with Buddhist teachings on mindfulness, demonstrating a universal recognition of the tension between external constraints and internal autonomy. As philosophical and religious thought evolved, the divide between free will and determinism became increasingly pronounced. Yet, the common thread across cultures remains clear: the search for meaning in the interplay between choice and destiny. Whether through the karmic cycles of Hinduism, the mindful liberation of Buddhism, or the moral imperatives of Christianity, humanity has long grappled with the paradox of free will, a testament to our enduring quest to understand our place in the grand scheme of existence. In the modern age of neuroscience, the age-old debate about free will versus determinism has taken on a fascinating twist. Groundbreaking studies suggest that many of our decisions may be made subconsciously, long before we're even aware of them. This revelation challenges the notion that we are fully autonomous beings, in control of every choice we make. Instead, it opens a door to understanding the intricate processes of the brain and the unconscious forces shaping our lives. One of the most significant experiments in this area was conducted by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s, a study that became a cornerstone in discussions about free will and the brain. Libet's research focused on the concept of readiness potential, a measurable brain signal that occurs before a person consciously decides to act. In his experiments, participants were asked to perform a simple task, pressing a button whenever they felt like it, while their brain activity was monitored. Astonishingly, Libet discovered that readiness potential in the brain occurred several hundred milliseconds before participants reported being aware of their decision to press the button. This finding was revolutionary. It suggested that the brain initiates decisions before we consciously make them, leading to the question, is our conscious mind merely an observer, rationalizing choices already made by subconscious processes? Critics of Libet's work argue that his experiments focused on trivial decisions, not the complex, high-stakes choices that define human lives. However, subsequent studies have expanded on his findings, demonstrating that similar subconscious processes occur in more intricate decision-making scenarios. Neuroscientists now understand that the brain is a dynamic network of interactions, constantly processing information to predict outcomes and optimize behavior. This processing often occurs below the level of conscious awareness, where billions of neurons work in concert to analyze data, identify patterns, and make decisions. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for higher-order thinking, plays a key role in evaluating potential actions. Yet, even its functions are influenced by deeper, subconscious layers of the brain, such as the amygdala and basal ganglia, which regulate emotions, memory, and habitual responses. Biases and cognitive patterns also play a significant role in shaping our choices. The brain is inherently limited in its capacity to process information, leading it to rely on shortcuts, what psychologists call heuristics. These mental shortcuts help us make decisions quickly, but can also introduce systematic errors. For example, the availability heuristic causes us to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easier to recall, such as plane crashes or lottery wins. Similarly, confirmation bias leads us to favor information that aligns with our existing beliefs, often at the expense of objectivity. These biases highlight the brain's limitations, but they also demonstrate its adaptability. The subconscious mind is not a deterministic machine, but a highly flexible system designed to navigate a complex and uncertain world. It balances past experiences, current stimuli, and anticipated outcomes to guide behavior, often without the need for conscious input. This efficiency is what allows us to function in everyday life, Yet, it also underscores how much of our behavior operates on autopilot. Further complicating the notion of free will is the influence of external factors on brain activity. Environmental cues, social pressures, and even genetic predispositions can subtly shape our choices, often without our awareness. For instance, studies on priming have shown that exposure to specific words, images, or environments can influence subsequent behavior. In one experiment, participants exposed to words associated with aging, such as slow or old, walked more slowly afterward, a phenomenon known as the Florida effect. Such findings suggest that our decisions are not entirely our own, but are shaped by a web of external and internal influences. However, the deterministic view of the brain is not without its challenges. While the subconscious mind may initiate decisions, the conscious mind still plays a crucial role in evaluating and overriding these impulses. This interplay between subconscious and conscious processes is where the complexity of human agency lies. For example, a person may feel an immediate urge to eat a piece of cake, but consciously decide to resist for health reasons. This ability to reflect, analyze, and choose distinguishes humans from other animals, and is often cited as evidence of free will. The observer effect in quantum mechanics provides an intriguing parallel to these discussions. In quantum physics, the act of observation can influence the behavior of particles, suggesting that the observer is an integral part of the system. Similarly, our conscious awareness may act as an observer, shaping the outcome of subconscious processes. This idea bridges neuroscience with spirituality, proposing that while our choices may be influenced by pre-existing conditions, our awareness and intention can alter their trajectory. Despite these advancements, the debate over free will and determinism remains unresolved. Some neuroscientists argue that the concept of free will is an illusion, a comforting narrative constructed by the brain to make sense of its actions. Others contend that free will exists, but not in the absolute sense. Instead, it operates within the constraints of biology, psychology, and environment, a nuanced perspective that aligns with philosophical ideas of compatibilism. In the end, the study of neuroscience does not diminish the human experience, but enriches it. By understanding the brain's subconscious processes, we gain insight into the hidden mechanisms that drive behavior. This knowledge empowers us to make more conscious choices, challenging automatic responses and embracing the complexity of human agency. The intersection of neuroscience, philosophy, and spirituality opens a fascinating dialogue about what it means to be human. It invites us to reconsider the nature of choice, responsibility, and freedom in a world governed by both deterministic laws and boundless possibilities. Whether or not free will exists in its purest form, the ability to reflect, adapt, and strive for greater awareness remains one of humanity's greatest gifts. Every decision we make is a product of numerous forces: our environment, genetics, upbringing, and even subconscious processes, making the interplay between free will and determinism a constant factor in daily life. From mundane choices like what to eat for breakfast to life-altering decisions like choosing a career, our perceived autonomy is deeply intertwined with external and internal influences. But how much control do we really have? One of the most significant influences on decision-making is our environment. The culture we grow up in, the socioeconomic status of our families, and the values imparted to us as children all shape the way we view the world. A person raised in a stable, supportive environment may develop a strong sense of self-efficacy, believing they can control their destiny. Conversely, someone from a turbulent background might feel trapped by circumstances, attributing outcomes to external forces beyond their control. These environmental factors lay the foundation for how we perceive agency, or the lack thereof. Genetics adds another layer of complexity. Research in behavioral genetics has shown that certain traits such as impulsivity, resilience, or even predispositions to mental health conditions are influenced by our DNA. For example, some people may have a genetic predisposition to addiction, making them more likely to struggle with substance abuse when exposed to specific triggers. While these genetic tendencies don't entirely determine behavior, they certainly shape the framework within which choices are made. Upbringing serves as the bridge between environment and genetics, blending the two into a unique set of experiences that shape personality and decision-making. Parenting styles, education, and early relationships all contribute to an individual's worldviews. A child raised with encouragement and open dialogue may develop a strong sense of autonomy, while one subjected to strict rules or neglect might internalize a sense of helplessness. These early influences create patterns of behavior and thought that often persist into adulthood, subtly guiding decisions without conscious awareness. These factors lead to a profound philosophical question. If so much of who we are is shaped by forces beyond our control, are we truly responsible for our actions? The implications are immense, touching on morality, ethics, and even the justice system. For instance, should a person with a traumatic upbringing be held to the same moral standards as someone who had every advantage in life? Does acknowledging the role of determinism in shaping behavior absolve individuals of accountability? Many philosophers have grappled with this tension between free will and determinism. Compatibilists argue that the two can coexist. While our choices are influenced by external and internal factors, we still possess the ability to act with intention within those constraints. In this view, responsibility doesn't require absolute freedom, but rather the capacity to reflect, deliberate, and act in alignment with one's values. For example, someone raised in poverty may face significant challenges, but their ability to seek education or pursue meaningful work reflects an exercise of agency, even within limited options. On the other hand, hard determinists argue that free will is an illusion, asserting that all actions are predetermined by a chain of cause and effect. From this perspective, holding individuals accountable for their behavior is fundamentally unjust, as they are merely enacting scripts written by their biology and environment. While this viewpoint may seem disheartening, it also invites a more compassionate approach to understanding human behavior, emphasizing rehabilitation over punishment. Yet, in daily life, we often operate under the assumption of free will, making plans, setting goals, and taking responsibility for outcomes. This practical approach aligns with existentialist philosophy, which emphasizes the importance of creating meaning through personal choice, regardless of external constraints. Jean-Paul Sartre famously argued that while we are condemned to be free, it is through this freedom that we define ourselves, even in the face of deterministic forces. Or bridging determinism with a sense of personal agency requires a nuanced perspective. It involves recognizing the interplay of influences while affirming our capacity to navigate them consciously. Mindfulness practices, for example, offer tools to become more aware of subconscious patterns and external pressures, enabling us to respond rather than react. Similarly, cultivating self-awareness allows us to identify the values and goals that matter most, guiding decisions with intention rather than habit. One powerful example of this balance can be seen in overcoming adversity. Consider someone who grows up in a community with limited resources and high crime rates. While the deterministic factors of their environment might push them towards certain outcomes, their ability to recognize these influences and seek alternatives through education, mentorship, or personal discipline demonstrates the interplay between determinism and free will. This act of conscious choice doesn't negate the challenges they face, but highlights their capacity to transcend them. At its core, the tension between free will and determinism is a reminder of the complexity of human existence. While we are undeniably shaped by forces beyond our control, we also possess the ability to reflect, adapt, and grow. This duality doesn't diminish personal agency, but rather contextualizes it, encouraging a compassionate and holistic understanding of ourselves and others. By embracing this interplay, we can navigate daily life with greater wisdom and intentionality. We can acknowledge the constraints imposed by genetics, upbringing, and environment without succumbing to fatalism. Instead, we can focus on the choices available within those constraints, recognizing that even small acts of agency can have profound ripple effects. Ultimately, the debate between free will and determinism is less about choosing sides and more about finding harmony between them. It's about understanding that while our actions are influenced by myriad factors, the meaning we ascribe to those actions is uniquely ours to define. This balance allows us to live authentically, taking responsibility for our choices while embracing the interconnected web of forces that shape our lives. Life is filled with uncertainties, and the debate between free will and determinism adds yet another layer of complexity. However, regardless of where one stands on the spectrum of belief, practical-ness approaches can help us navigate life with a sense of purpose, clarity, and even freedom, whether real or perceived. Understanding how to embrace uncertainty and reconcile these philosophies offers valuable insights for personal growth and resilience. One of the most liberating ways to approach life is to embrace uncertainty. Instead of being paralyzed by the need for absolute control or clarity, accepting that life is inherently unpredictable can lead to a profound sense of peace. This doesn't mean abandoning effort or direction, but rather shifting perspective. When faced with major decisions like choosing a career, entering a relationship, or moving to a new city, the realization that outcomes are influenced by countless factors beyond your control can ease the pressure. Instead of agonizing over making the perfect choice, you can focus on making the best decision possible in the moment and trust the process. Adopting a deterministic view of life can also cultivate self-compassion. By acknowledging the myriad influences shaping your thoughts and actions, you can let go of unnecessary guilt or self-judgment. For example, if someone struggles with procrastination, understanding that their behavior might stem from environmental factors, ingrained habits, or even genetic predispositions can reduce feelings of shame. This doesn't absolve personal responsibility, but allows for a kinder, more constructive approach to self-improvement. Similarly, viewing others through the lens of determinism fosters empathy. If someone acts unkindly or makes a poor decision, recognizing the potential impact of their upbringing, experiences, or emotional state can temper judgment. This perspective doesn't excuse harmful actions, but encourages a compassionate response, focusing on understanding and, where possible, supporting change. Real-world examples highlight the value of navigating life without clinging to the illusion of control. Consider the story of a professional athlete who, after a career-ending injury, reinvents themselves as a motivational speaker. While the injury was beyond their control, their ability to adapt demonstrates resilience and resourcefulness within deterministic constraints. Similarly, a student who struggles academically due to a learning disability might find success by embracing tools and support systems, rather than fixating on their perceived limitations. Mindfulness practices provide another practical tool for living with or without the belief in free will. By cultivating present moment awareness, individuals can observe their thoughts, feelings, and impulses without immediately identifying with them. This practice creates a space for reflection and conscious choice, allowing for more intentional actions even if those actions are influenced by external and internal factors. For example, mindfulness might help someone notice their tendency to react angrily in certain situations, providing an opportunity to pause and choose a more constructive response. For those who embrace the idea of free will, practical applications often involve intentional decision-making and goal-setting. Techniques like visualization, affirmations, and creating actionable plans reinforce a sense of autonomy. For example, someone pursuing a new career might visualize themselves succeeding in their chosen field, use affirmations to build confidence, and break their goals into manageable steps. This approach fosters a sense of empowerment, regardless of whether their choices are ultimately shaped by deterministic factors. On the other hand, those who lean toward determinism might focus on aligning their actions with the flow of life rather than resisting it. This could involve practicing acceptance when plans don't go as expected, or finding meaning in challenges that seem beyond their control. For instance, someone who loses a job unexpectedly might use the experience as an opportunity to explore new interests or rediscover their passions. By viewing setbacks as part of a larger, interconnected narrative, they can move forward with grace and adaptability. One powerful takeaway from the free will versus determinism debate is the importance of balance. While we may not have absolute control over our lives, we still possess the ability to influence our experiences and responses. This balance is beautifully illustrated in the concept of surfing the wave of life. While we cannot control the ocean, we can learn to navigate its currents with skill and intention. In relationships, this balance manifests as understanding and compromise. Recognizing that your partner's behaviors are shaped by their unique background and experiences can reduce conflict and courtesy to foster mutual respect. At the same time, asserting your own needs and values reflects an exercise of agency within the relationship. This dynamic interplay creates a foundation for healthy, harmonious connections. Ultimately, living with or without free will requires embracing a paradox. We are both creators and creations, influenced by forces beyond our control, while simultaneously shaping our destinies through the choices available to us. This perspective encourages humility, resilience, and a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human existence. Whether you view yourself as a fully autonomous being or a participant in a grand deterministic dance, the key lies in making peace with uncertainty and finding meaning in the journey. By integrating philosophical insights with practical strategies, you can navigate life with greater clarity, compassion, and purpose, free to explore the mysteries of existence while grounded in the reality of the present moment. As we reach the end of this journey, one question lingers. Does it truly matter if free will exists or if our lives are governed by deterministic forces? In many ways, the answer lies not in proving one side over the other, but in how we navigate the mystery of existence. Whether we possess total autonomy or are shaped by a web of influences, the focus remains on what we can control: our perspectives, our actions, and our willingness to grow. Embracing the unknown rather than fearing it can lead to a more meaningful life. Acknowledging both our limits and our possibilities allows us to find balance, compassion, and resilience in the face of life's uncertainties. Instead of being preoccupied with the question of control, we can channel our energy into understanding ourselves and contributing to the world in ways that align with our values. As a final thought, let this be an invitation to dive deeper into related mysteries, questions of consciousness, destiny, and the interconnectedness of existence. Together, these ideas form a tapestry that continues to shape how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe.